Good evening, everybody. With it being close to 6:30 on Tuesday, March 12th, 2019, I will call this meeting of the Webster School Committee to order, and please ask that we stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice. Hope everybody had a good couple weeks since our last meeting. The first item on the agenda is the approval of the February 26, 2019 minutes. I just had two minor corrections. Under new business, the second motion, which was to accept the donation from Curaleaf, I believe all 5 members voted in the affirmative. There's just no number indicated. And then under item 6, the review transfer signing of bills, again, there was a transfer request for the middle school. And again, I believe all 5 members voted in the affirmative. So unless my colleagues on the committee disagree, I will entertain a motion to approve the meeting minutes with those changes.
So moved.
Second.
There is a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Mrs. Perangeli, would you poll the committee, please?
Mr. Shenivert?
Yes.
Ms. Naparata?
Yes.
Ms. Siddiqui?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes. Again, since it's show choir season, if the superintendent does not object, I was going to skip to item 4, student update, Mariah Belletti. Good evening, Mariah.
Good evening. For academics, we are more than halfway through third quarter, and progress report updates were sent out to all parents, and those can be checked on PowerSchool. Seniors have their 10 hours of community service due, and those are due on April 5th. So we were telling all the seniors during our last advisory and then this advisory to make sure they get those hours done so they can walk for graduation. For clubs, a huge congratulations goes out to the DECA group because a lot of our students attended the DECA state competition in Boston, and one of our students, Tyler Adolfo, actually won first place in his category, and he is now hopefully going to Orlando, Florida to compete in the International Career Development Competition. For athletics, all winter sports had a great season, especially the boys varsity basketball team, who made it 2 games into districts. Spring sports signups have begun, which includes track, tennis, softball, and baseball. And for events, the art department had their annual Empty Bowls event and raised over $4,000 for the art department. The drama department had their Murder at the Banquet dinner at Point Breeze the other night. Student Council is hosting their annual Mr. Bartlett on Wednesday, so a lot of seniors and junior boys will be competing to see who gets the trophy for Mr. Bartlett of the year. Impressions is hosting a show choir competition this upcoming weekend for the middle school group New Attitude. So it's when a bunch of groups in their age range, they all compete with one another, and then they also do one big performance together, and then Impressions, which is our group, performs the last show. And then seniors will be receiving a flyer with all important upcoming dates, deadlines, and events for the rest of this year's school year, and that will be occurring on Thursday during the senior advisory. And that concludes my report.
Any questions or comments from the committee? Obviously, on behalf of the committee, congratulations to all the DECA members, but especially Tyler for qualifying for the Nationals. And I believe it was a wonderful event, the Open Bowls, and I believe they were raising money for the Webster Dudley Food Share. So
Awesome.
not only was it a great community event, but once again, as somebody around this table likes to say, Webster cares. Kindness matters too. But thank you for your report.
Thank you.
Continuing with the agenda, the superintendent's report. Good evening, Mrs. Gogan.
Good evening. Mike doesn't know.
You can just grab
Good
Mariah's
evening.
if you want.
Good evening, everyone. I have lots of good information to share. I would like to just give you an update. As you know, last week we had a full comprehensive district review. We had 6 educators here talking with teachers, observing classrooms, talking with community members, parents, students, school committee members. It was a stressful week, a very long week. I didn't anticipate it to be that stressful, but we had a snow day on Monday, so we had to push everything back, and they stayed till Friday. I want to thank everyone for contributing in that very important review. We won't see a report for months, but I will share it when we get it. And I wanted to let you know about that. I also want to let you know that we had the adult education site visit March 7th, last Thursday. That was a visit that was rescheduled due to snow. Leslie Baker will be coming back and sharing the reports of that visit when she gets them. They came to look at her programming, curriculum instruction, staffing, and she will be giving us that information. And I wanted to let you know that the 2018 dropout rates have been published, and I know we will be hearing more about that when the Bartlett High School School Improvement Plan comes through for approval, but I wanted to share them with you. The dropout rates have improved. They went from 6.2% in 2017 to 2.8% in 2018. So that's very good news. The graduation rates have really kind of slipped a little. The all cohort group was 72.1%. In 2017, it went to 67.7% in 2018. The four-year adjusted cohort rate is what we like to look at because those are the kids that come and stay. It's not the transient population. That was 76.8% in 2017, and it went to 74.5% in 2018. We know that this is an area of concern. It has been an area of concern, and the high school staff are working on that, and I would like to see that incorporated into their school improvement plan. I have some good news to share with you, which I like to do at every meeting. I did write a grant for an after prom or after graduation event through the district attorney's office. I think I had shared with you I was the first one to get it in. Well, we got it. We have been awarded $5,000, and I am currently working with the principal and hopefully the senior advisor and the students with how they want to use these funds. It is for an after prom or after graduation event. The purpose of the grant is to keep our kids safe and have them not engaged in high-risk activities such as drinking and drugging. And so we're hoping to plan something probably after graduation. I think there was a little bit of a panic with prom and seniors already talking about graduating. The planning piece was making people worry. So I will keep you abreast of that. As you know, I have been working with MAFRE, and we have a new exciting opportunity with MAFRE, Foundation MAFRE, and I will be meeting with them Thursday. They have asked us to partner with them on some research with Johns Hopkins Institute. They wanted to do some research around school safety and preparedness for school safety. So they're putting together a survey that I will send out to teachers and staff, and they can voluntarily fill it out if they choose to. The other piece of this research would be having an interview with the principals and the school nurses who have all committed to wanting to participate in this. MAFRE is looking to find new ways to help schools, and they wanted our site to be the site where they found out how we are prepared for safety. So I'm excited about that. I do want to give you some personnel updates. Brittany Stewart from the Bartlett High School, she's a paraprofessional. She has resigned. Jared Slota has been transferred from the ABA position back to a para position at the high school. We have a substitute dean of students. His name is James Demers. He came to us from Westport, where he was the principal of their junior and senior high school, and he is filling in for us. Other updates are many of you probably just received my call. We're partnering with the district attorney, and on Thursday night at 6 o'clock, we will have an event at the high school, and we'll be showing the Clay Sofer documentary, the story called If They Had Known. It's a short documentary, but it's put on by high school kids. It's the story of Clay Sofer's life. It's very, very powerful. It's an important movie for parents, guardians, community members, aunts, uncles, for people to look at, and young adults. It's about the challenges our kids are facing living in a party culture and what kids consider to be normal when they go out. It is a sad story, but through the story, we're hoping that it is an awareness and educates families about the dangers of drinking and then an accidental drugging. We will have a panel discussion. We have the DA coming. We have Chief Shaw. We have Gary Milliard from the Webster EMS. I will be on the panel, and so will Ross LeBlond, who is an RA from Nichols College. So we'll have some resource tables starting at 6 o'clock from the DA's office and other resources available, and then we'll have the showing of the movie at 6:30, and then we will have a panel discussion at 7. New this year, our athletic director made it mandatory for athletes to come to this, so we're hoping that we have a full house because not a lot of districts have been able to get this movie to show it. So it is open for the community. Please tell your friends. I have sent it out through the PTO at the elementary school and the middle school, and I've been sending out calls and tweeting. So we're hoping that people can come and learn. I would also just like to comment a little bit about the Empty Bowls event. It's really a fabulous evening, and I will say that it was much more crowded than it was last year. And my husband said, you know, I thought you were coming home early. and I didn't get home early because I didn't leave. It was just a wonderful event, a community event. The kids were playing music, and it just, you didn't want to leave. It was a very comfortable community event, and I want to give kudos to all the students, the band students, and all the people who donated food. It's really a wonderful event, and the fact that we're raising money to give to the Webster Dudley Food Share is just heartwarming. I received information this week that the state legislators have allocated up to $300,000 to subsidize exam fees for qualifying low-income students who take the AP and International Baccalaureate Diploma for the spring of 2019. This does not apply to AP STEM or ELA exams already covered through the Mass Insight Education. So this has been passed on to our guidance department over at the high school. I would also like to give you an update that we are in the midst of paraprofessional negotiations. We had our second meeting on March 7th. I think it was a very productive meeting. We have reached several tentative agreements, and discussions are occurring with other areas. I'd also like to let you know that Monique and I have met with the cafeteria staff regarding their contracts. We met on March 8th. We have a follow-up meeting, and that meeting was also very positive. I'd like to give a shout out to Danielle Jalbert and Sarah Phillips, who went to the State House to speak to the legislative about breakfast after the bell lobbying day. I don't know if you saw the tweets, but they were all over the tweets, and I want to give them a shout out for sharing all the positive things that are happening here in our district. Webster's getting known and mentioned. I ran into someone from the DA's office, and they were like, Webster's getting on the map. So I want to thank them for that. Yesterday, I attended Project HERE Summit at Worcester State and heard Attorney Maura Healy speak, along with Dr. Sharon Levy, about adolescent substance abuse and addiction. She's from Boston Children's Hospital. Project HERE is a free program for middle schoolers to be used in health class to help educate them about the challenges of smoking. It was a fascinating workshop where they talked a lot about the dangers of smoking and nicotine. In one joule, like a pod they call them, in one pod of a joule, there's enough nicotine that is a whole pack of cigarettes. And you could smoke a pod in 20 minutes. And so what medical professionals are seeing is nicotine overdose. in children in middle school age and high school age because they're smoking nicotine. And this workshop was really about the damages that happens, things that happen in your brain, and how we really need to educate students not to be going down those roads to becoming addicted. I did pass on that information to our health teachers. I sat next to a health teacher from Milford who is eager to partner with some of our health teachers just to roll out this supplemental program. So I'm kind of trying to pair our health teachers with some outside health teachers, and hopefully we will use what we can from this program. I have received notification from the Department of Education that Bartlett High School is still required to be a part of the Rethinking Discipline. I just want to read this to you. The Rethinking Discipline, based on our disproportionate rates of suspension between special education and students of color. They've analyzed the data from the school year of 16, 17, and 18. We've made some progress, but we're still in the cohort and expected to be part of this Rethinking Discipline. This will require the high school to put together a new action plan. They did one last year. They're going to have to do another action plan where the Department of Education can analyze the data to see how we're implementing some of our discipline initiatives, such as PBIS, and those things. But we have provided evidence to them, and our internal discrepancies have been reduced, but we have to meet a threshold of a certain standard deviation, and we're not there yet. So there'll be more information that I will share with you on that. And lastly, I attended the Massachusetts Superintendent's Women's Education Leadership Network today over at Holy Cross, where there were hundreds of educational leaders where we met and talked about innovation and leading and building confidence in people around you, inspiring others to be part of change, barriers to change. It was a very good event for me to go to, especially after last week. We are a district that is changing, and with that comes lots of challenges. We're very much trying to open the forum to have distributive leadership here and empower people to have a voice and move the district forward by bringing up the rigor in our curriculum, by providing equitable opportunities to our students. And that's a lot of work. And in order for it to happen here in Webster, it really has to be a team effort. I personally feel that we have made great progress in that area, and we have continued work to do. So I was pleased to attend and be around colleagues facing some of those challenges, and some of the things that were said by some of the speakers really resonated with me today and empowered me to come back with a good, positive attitude. And that concludes my report.
Thank you very much. Any questions or comments from the committee? Hearing none, continuing with the agenda, the business manager report. Good evening, Mrs. Perangeli.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. First item on my agenda tonight is the school choice update. In your packet, you should have received an advisory that was sent out. I came across this in one of my MASBO notebooks in the email. I printed it out because that will be coming up in one of our topics coming forward. We usually come to the school committee in April looking at our school choice seats again. So I just thought this was some helpful information to read. They have an FAQ in the back, which is really good information about that. School choice in many different scenarios about what our responsibilities as a district are, about receiving students, and some really good information in there that helps clarify. The last time they put out an advisory, it was 1995, so I think this was well overdue. They are accepting comments or any kind of feedback through March 25th, and then it'll be finalized for publication. So I just thought this would be good for you to have. As you know, we'll be discussing, and I've just recently been reviewing our school choice numbers, and it's still an area that we struggle with here in the district. Approximately right now, we have, I want to say, 29 kids, I think it was, coming in, which equates to about $183,000. And then we have 136 kids going out, which totals about $803,000. So, it's an area that we know we need to work on, we continue working on, and hopefully things will fall in line as we continue to progress here in the district with our hard work. Do you have any questions about that?
I understand this is the law, but I was surprised in reading the questions that if a student is expelled from another district, we are required to accept them.
Mm-hmm.
It's just shocking, but that is what the law states.
We are open to everybody. We literally have no right of refusal.
The only other, and I know we'll get into a lot more discussion, but when you guys put together the proposed plan, I was reading again an article through the MASC Twitter feed about districts looking at setting a date, as far, and I reading through all the FAQs, it did not appear that that's not prevented, that we could do that, and I don't believe we have in the past. And a lot of districts have found that it's helpful to set that date because oftentimes things will occur towards the end of the school year, and now if we don't have that date in the policy, we have to accept them, I believe, correct?
That is something that we have been discussing. The high school guidance staff is actually putting together a proposal because they are seeing a trend of that kids come in and kids come out.
Right.
And so that is something that we could do. We want to double check to make sure that other districts are doing that and it meets the requirement. Yeah, this is very clear. I like the fact questions. I think it really puts things in perspective. So I think
Telling.
it is telling.
Any other questions or comments on this topic? Hearing none?
Okay, the second item on my agenda is breakfast before the bell. Mr. Cushion had mentioned that at his last presentation here. I just wanted to give you some updated information I wasn't sure if I had shared with you. As you know, the Commonwealth of Mass had some language directing public schools to offer breakfast after the instructional day has begun. And this is through K through 12 students in public schools who serve breakfast under Section 1C of Chapter 69, where we're not less than 60%. So that applies to us, and it applies to our high school. So what that means for us is we have until April 1st to pick an option of how we're going to serve breakfast to our high school students. As you know, at the high school, we don't have homeroom, so it's a little difficult and different from the other schools where they can just go to their homeroom, start their day, and eat breakfast. Here we have kids coming in and they go right to classes, and then we have students who are also going to gym. They're not going to take their lunch to gym into the locker room, or breakfast, I should say, and have breakfast in the morning in the locker room. So we've got to come up with some ways and some thinking outside the box that'll meet the needs of our high school kids. So we need to select an option. We think a kiosk, or we're going to call it a kiosk, or we'll have a couple of pickup options for the students to come in that we're going to have to leave open for a couple of hours. So that way students who come in the morning and go to gym right away will have the opportunity to have lunch, breakfast after gym. So that's going to create we're going to have to be creative on our part, because where are we going to put this? How are we going to store the food? Who's going to man the food in the morning? We usually only have 2 cafeterias working, staff working early in the morning, so we're going to have to figure out the logistics of that. It's probably, we're leaning towards a grab and go, something that can be simple, where kids can come in the morning. They all enter through the door in front of the cafeteria. They can grab something quickly and go to class. And then the other kids will have points. Once the day starts, those doors are locked, and they can only access the building through the other entrance. And our thought is, our kid's going to come in at that other entrance. Do we want to send them down to the other end of the building to grab their breakfast and then go to class? So we're trying to figure out some ideas to make it a little easier for them to grab breakfast when they're coming in, because if they are late, we want to get them to class as soon as possible. So we'll make a choice by April 1st. We have to implement it by May 31st. You know, Mr. Cushing would, and we agree, would like to get it going sooner than later. So we're going to try and shoot for May 1st just to see how it goes, so we can work out the logistics, and that way try to get something definite by the end of the year, so it'll be smooth sailing at the beginning of next year. There was some good questions and answers also here. The whole point of this is it should be after the bell, after kids are coming in and they're in class, so it's basically a time on learning. So that's our goal, that's what we're working with. I think we can do it. I know Mr. Cushing and Ms. Zernicki were excited about having breakfast in the classroom. It's something that I know Becky has wanted for a few years now. We went and looked out in Springfield and looked to see how things ran out there. So I think they're ready for it. It's just, we hope to increase the participation, you know, keep food waste down to a minimum, and get some good food in the hands of the kids. So any questions there? And then the last item on my agenda is the Project Bread. Ellen has been working hard, writing grants. She's very aggressive with that. So we have 2 grants that she just received. We have a Healthy School Breakfast Grant from Project Bread for $2,000. And we have a Park Ave grant for $2,500. Middle school will be used for buying food and doing some breakfast taste testing in the morning, trying to find more options for the kids that will make them want to eat a little bit more. And then at Park Ave, they're replacing bags. We've had breakfast in the classroom over there for quite a few years now already, and the bags are getting worn, so she'll be replacing those bags for the grants. We expect to be getting one from Project Bread for the high school, and we'll be also looking at the EOS Foundation for startup money also for the high school, looking for equipment or materials that we'll need to store the food. And that concludes my report.
Thank you very much. Any questions or comments from the committee? Hearing none, continuing with the agenda, the principal report, Robin Parmley, Park Avenue Elementary School. Good evening, Mrs. Parmley. Can you please turn your mic on and speak into it, or John yells at me after the meetings?
How's that? Better? Good evening, everybody. So at Park Avenue, we've been busy as usual. And one of the first things I wanted to share with you is I had offered staff a voluntary training on learning targets and success criteria, and I'll explain a little bit about what that is. It was a 7:20 in the morning meeting, and we had, along with admin, including Jill and Janice, Mr. Soto and Mrs. Mackay and staff, we had 45 people come for that training voluntarily. So I was very impressed with the desire to continue to learn. They're tremendous staff that they're willing to do that. So with our learning targets, I gave you some reading material. You know, I always do. And so the whole idea of the learning targets, instead of using objectives, which is more adult language, it's really to refine the focus on a daily lesson and to put it into kid language. So it really sets their learning destination. Research shows that children learn much better if they know in advance what they're learning and why they're learning it. And if you referred back to it throughout the lesson and you bring your lesson to a close by looking at what we call success criteria, pieces that they're able to demonstrate in their learning, that learning is much it's at a much deeper level and they're able to retain it. So if you take a look, these are just some handouts I had given staff and also a copy of our PowerPoint. We had to really move through this quickly. This is usually a half-day training, so I felt like I was speed talking and just talking super fast. And the staff really were so attentive. Since then, as I've been collecting lesson plans, I've asked the staff to try it, and they're doing an amazing job, and I'm able to give them very precise feedback. So how it is set up is it's put into student language. So they had to practice finding examples and creating true examples and understanding what a non-example might be. So here's an example. Let's see here. We've got a few in here. So one learning target is I understand, or I can understand, that a table and a graph can be used to represent the same data. So that would be the learning target. They'll know if they hit their target if at the end of the lesson they are able to, and then there's a list of success criteria. And it really gives teachers so much information on, at the end of that lesson. It helps them to adjust their instruction so they're not waiting to a unit test. A lot of times with the objective, it's more for the adults entering the room, but this really brings it right down to student language so that students now own it and they're accountable. And I am excited to see, as I'm walking through the rooms, the learning targets are up, the success criteria statements are already going up, but more importantly, the teachers are stopping and referring to it in the middle of their lessons, which is the key component. And I know Mrs. Mackay shared that she went into a kindergarten classroom and a student was able to in a very articulate manner to explain what the learning target was and how they knew if they, how they would know if they learned it. So I was like, yay, so that's a success. So this is at the very beginning stages, but I'm pretty jazzed. Also, we've just had our MCAS staff training. I did not give you a copy of that because that was quite lengthy. I do have a pack I'm more than happy to share with you if you want it. It was a 2.5-hour training, very thorough, so that staff could not only really dive deep into expectations, but also to have a Q&A time to bring clarity to the process. And that was for our grade 3 and grade 4 staff, as well as we did bring in some different paras so that we would be completely prepared for all of our test administrators and proctors to have the training should we need them. And last but not least, our March Kids of Character this month is Perseverance, because we know that we're coming up in April for MCAS, never giving up, no matter how hard a task might be. And as I close tonight, just a warm invite to our grade 1 concert that is coming up on March 29th.
Thank you very much. Any questions or comments from the committee for Mrs. Parmley? I think after Mrs. Gogan's seminar today, she felt the same way about Perseverance. Again, not being an educator, this seems really cool. And it, not only does it make a lot of sense, but it seems very easy for both our staff and especially the kids to understand. And I probably shouldn't say this, but I sometimes think those in education sometimes complicate things a little too much, and this seems to make a lot of sense and simplify it. So,
It does. Thank you.
and I'm sure you had no problem speaking quickly, by the way.
Oh, yeah, can you tell?
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Continuing with the agenda, the next item under old business is the monthly report on fundraising. Again, this is part of our school committee policy. We just reviewed the fundraising applications that have been approved by the building principal and superintendent. Again, we do not approve them. Mrs. Doherty in the Foreign Language Club is selling Krispy Kreme donuts. This one actually is, it's Bartlett Chair is having a meat raffle. The Drama Club actually did their dinner theater the other night. I heard it, unfortunately, I had another commitment and was unable to attend, but I heard it went very well. The Drama Club will be selling tickets to their spring play Hairspray, which will be held, looks like May 10th and 11th. And the Park Ave Music Department, oh, no, that's the next item. So again, all of those fundraising applications are posted on our website. Continuing with new business, first item under new business is approval of out-of-state field trip request, grade 4 to Woodstock Academy, Woodstock, Connecticut. The Park Ave Music Department is requesting a field trip on March 27th to Woodstock Academy for the fourth graders, it looks like, to go to a symphony concert.
It's cool.
Is there any more information that I missed, or are there any questions or comments from the committee? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve the fourth grade out-of-state field trip to Woodstock Academy in Woodstock, Connecticut.
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Mrs. Perangeli, would you pull the committee, please?
Mr. Shenifert?
Yes.
Ms. Naparado?
Yes.
Ms. Siddiqui?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes. Next item on the agenda is Central Massachusetts Collaborative Update. Mrs. Gogan, I assume.
Yes, thank you. As you know, back in the fall, the school committee voted to withdraw from the collaborative at the end of this year upon my recommendations that we had not a lot of students, 2 or 3, and we had some concerns about the programming. Part of what goes on with the withdrawal is that other members had to join, because this is a 2-person collaborative. And at this point, Oxford has been voted in as another member, but we are still in the process of developing a new agreement, which has to be approved by the Department of Education. The Department of Education has been at several meetings and has been walking us along. As we've been doing this, one of the things that the Department of Education has tasked us to do is to really look at equity of tuition between members. And as I had shared with you, it's really predominantly a Worcester-used collaborative, and they get like a discounted rate, and they pay one lump sum, and we pay more. But in these discussions of reorganizing the collaborative, they really don't want Webster to leave, even though we have 3 students. They are suggesting, and nothing's final, and I'm bringing this up for discussion purposes, so you can start to think about this, that Webster stay and be given a discounted rate, and that Worcester gets a volume rate when they reach 300 students, which they do, and that new members coming in would get a separate new rate because they are new to the collaborative and not pre-existing members. So I have been going to multiple meetings. I have been bringing along Monique to discuss the finance concerns that we have, and I've been bringing Kathy as well to look at the programming. And Webster's pulling out of the collaborative has really set an initiative to take a much deeper look at what's going on at this collaborative, and I think some good things are coming out of that. One of those things is looking at the finances so that we don't end in a deficit. And this year, I think their anticipated deficit is about $400,000, but there is a fund balance. And looking at programming and reorganization. So what I'd like you to know is currently we pay about $33,000 for one student to attend Central Mass Academy. We pay about $35,000 for one student to attend Central Mass. We pay about $38,000 for students to attend the Robert Goddard Academy, $48,000 for the Thrive, $38,000 for the Hartwell Learning, and $28,000 for the Woodward Day. What we have discovered in this process is the Woodward Day program really is not part of the collaborative. It really is a Worcester program. So in this transition of whether Webster stays or not, the Woodward Day is going back under the umbrella of the Worcester Public Schools. So right now on what the proposal is that we would be given discounted rates, and we would be paying about $30,000 for Central Mass Academy, Central Mass Prep, and Robert Goddard, and $41,000 for Thrive and Hartwell Learning Center. Different rates would be set for any new members coming in. So I've done a lot of thinking and processing and talking with the superintendent of Worcester and the business managers and the program directors, the special ed program director in Worcester and the special ed program director in here. And I just want you to think about the financial implications if we stayed. We haven't, I'm not making a recommendation tonight, but I do want you to know that if we were to stay, it would be financially, we'd benefit financially. And one of the things that we are doing and tasking the executive director to do is to look at reorganizing programs. I think I had mentioned to you before, they have several programs in one building, and I think they're spending close to $800,000 in directors, directors and assistant directors. And so we're asking them to look at how they can be more efficient and effective. And so I wanted to share all of that news tonight with you so that you could start thinking about that. Any new proposal, Webster needs to make a decision, I think, by the end of April, whether if they want to stay. But any new proposal has to be approved by the Department of Education. So their worry was if Webster left, the collaborative would fold. So at this point, only one member has been voted in. And they're not active members yet because the tuition rates have not been set because an agreement hasn't been set.
Any questions or comments from the committee?
How do those tuition rates compare to SWAC?
Very good question. They're very low compared to SWAC. And so I had just, because I'm on both boards, I had just given the executive director those rates, the rates that we just voted in for SWAC. And so part of this new proposal would be to increase non-member rates significantly to be at current level of what other collaboratives cost. I did not bring that to give you that, but I can give you that, Kathy. So we would be, so Central Mass,
Lower already?
they're lower.
Essentially would be lower.
It would be lower for the members, higher for non-members. And I think that's part of the issue that's been going on, that the rates they're not attracting enough people to come in because of programming, and that the rates are not as high as they should be.
And we currently have more students at SWAC, correct?
Yes.
Correct.
And in terms of the cost for transportation, is there an implication transporting to Worcester versus transporting to Dudley or Southbridge?
Not too bad, not too much of a difference. Either way, we're paying for transportation, so it's about 20 minutes either way. So not too much in transportation. But we really need to, department's biggest thing is that there really isn't any equity between member rates. So we have two members, but Worcester's paying an assessment, kind of. There really isn't a equity between, this is the rate, how do you get to that rate? And then, how do you get to Worcester's rate? There really was no rate. So, I mean, that's part of the process, and which has forced us to go through. How do you get to those rates? What are you charging? What do you charge outside members? And then really you got to take a look at programming. How do you support the programming? It's really all about the programming. That should drive your budget, and then how do you make that fiscally responsible to support itself?
So we've had a lot of meetings, and I think.
A lot of hours.
Yes, lots of hours, but I think the end result is really reorganizing and looking at the collaborative in a different way to make it be a better program for all students and provide equitable
Right.
between Worcester and Webster.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
So would it be fair to assume that when they submit a proposal to us, it will be a little bit more transparent with regard to our tuition, Worcester tuition?
Oh,
and
absolutely,
How they're arriving at that? It sounds a little arbitrary right now.
absolutely,
Yep. That's what the department wants.
yes.
Okay.
What they want to see is, okay, here is the rate, and then you just can't have an assessment, but you can give a volume discount, for instance. So how do you get to Worcester's rate? Do you have, over 100 kids, you're getting a certain discount, over 200 kids, you're getting a discount. So you really should start at a rate, and then how do you get to the discounted rate from there? Right now, you can't. There's no way of telling how you can get to those rates. So that's what's hopefully going to come from all of this, is equity to see that.
That's where we got the new rates from, was the 30,000 for a couple other programs. So more to come, but I just wanted to let you know that we're thinking about what are the benefits, the long-term benefits for Webster. Because if we were to pull out and they increase their rates, their non-member rates, we'll be paying substantially higher. Our goal is to make sure that the programs improve so that we can send, we can have options for our children.
Any other questions or comments from the committee? And perhaps an unintended positive of this whole process is clarifying and having these difficult discussions.
We try to make them fun.
If you can make collaborative board meetings fun, then you should run
We
this one.
do. We try. We try.
You have to.
Right.
In this field.
Next item on the agenda is approval of coaching job descriptions.
Okay, you have a new template, not new, but updated. We had a very good meeting with the union, and we had one of the coaches come, ask some very valid questions. We had Mrs. Sadecki help clarify some language, and what you see before you is the end result. It is a similar template for all the job descriptions except for the area where they describe the coach, the job-specific subject, soccer, basketball, track. All of the basic functions and responsibilities are similar.
Any questions or comments from the committee? Let me just again state, thank you for the effort that went into this by the building principals, the athletic director, yourself. I know you just mentioned the union meeting was helpful. With no further discussion, I will entertain a motion to approve the coaching job descriptions as presented.
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Mrs. Pransley, would you poll the committee, please?
Mr. Schoenberg?
Yes.
Ms. Naparetta?
Yes.
Ms. Siddiqui?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes. Next item on the agenda is enter into executive session. However, I do believe we have some guests with us that may, I believe, want to speak on the next item, which is the actual vote. So I will leave it entirely up to you. We're going to be coming back from executive session to open session, but I don't know how long that executive session will take. So by all means, if you want to make your comments now, perfect. You can use either mic, whichever one you prefer. Yeah, just turn that one on.
I'd like to thank you for allowing me to speak on behalf of the Administrative Assistants Association. We have been referred to as the faces of the district, and that it is extremely important that we represent our district in a positive and welcoming fashion. We agree with this and want to put our best faces forward every day. We love our jobs, our district, and most of us are well established here. There are only 12 of us. 7 of us grew up here and went to school here. 6 of us currently live in this town. 7 of us have children attending or have attended school here. Several of us have taken on coaching roles and volunteered for committees, school functions, and after-school programs. All of us, countless times, have voluntarily worked through our breaks, came in early, stayed late, and brought work home without the expectation of being paid. These facts represent loyalty and devotion. Every one of us is proud of what we do each day for our district. It is obvious in our actions that we continually go above and beyond the call of duty. We are unsung heroes, and we are okay with that. We understand that our district's budget is burdened. Keeping this in mind, throughout the past 9 months of negotiations, our proposals have remained few and simplistic, with our interest being a small raise. A raise that isn't even consistent with the rest of the unions, nor will it cover the increased cost of health insurance premiums. However, the dozens of proposals presented to us were inconsistent, wrongfully judgmental of contract sections, and financially hazardous for us. We spent the majority of each negotiation session defending our contract and trying to make sure it was understood that we do not receive any benefits or pay that we do not earn and work for. Nonetheless, the district hired a lawyer to assist in the continued questioning of our contract integrity. To address the elephant in the room, every proposal that has been centered around summer hours and pay has been introduced to us with the backing of the law. However, each one has been proven not applicable to our union. We have documentation to support the fact that our pay is consistent with only the hours we work, and the annualized amount is spread out into equal paychecks. There has been no supporting evidence that this practice by the district for many decades has ever shown to be a negative factor for the district. We have provided documentation to support that it is completely legal. We feel that the MOA being presented to you today shows that we have conceded to a very large number of proposals. It shows that the benefits to us can be counted on 2 fingers. We hope that you can see that we have given a lot for just 2 simple items. Maintaining our contract's integrity is in the best interest of the district, the students, and the community in which we serve. We'd like to continue putting our best faces forward and represent a district that values its administrative assistants.
Thank you very much. Next item on the agenda, I will entertain a motion to enter into executive session according to Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21, subsection A, to discuss strategy for negotiations with union personnel, in this case, the administrative assistants, and we will be returning back to public session following the executive session.
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Mrs. Pransley, pull the committee, please.
Mr. Shanavit?
Yes.
Ms. Naparata?
Yes.
Ms. Siddiqui?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, we will enter into executive session, returning to public session. So we have entered out of executive session, returning to open session, and continuing with this evening's agenda. The next item on the agenda is vote on Administrative Assistance Association Contract 2018-2021. Mrs. Gogan.
Yes. I would like to ask the school committee to vote to approve the memorandum of agreement dated 11/26/18, tentative agreements to add to the administrative assistance contract.
Are there any questions or comments from the committee?
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Shennevet.
I would like to make a motion to approve the MOA of the admin assistant contract dated 11/26/18.
I will second that motion for discussion purposes. Are there any other questions or comments from the committee? Let me just say, since many of you are with us this evening, and you're the president, correct, of the association, did make some comments. Certainly, from my perspective, and I think on behalf of the entire committee, regardless of the outcome of a vote that's going to happen in a moment, I do and we do value you as employees. These contract negotiations, I know you all have spent a tremendous amount of time. I'm sure at many times they were very emotional. They were probably mentally draining. Regardless of what I say, it may not change how you feel, but I don't want you to think that any concerns that we had related to contract language is an indication of how we feel about you as employees. Again, that's easy to say, and I do mean that from as much sincerity as I have. So I just wanted to share that with you, because not only, I would probably say that even if you weren't here, but especially since you joined us this evening, and I know this has been a very difficult process for everybody. And I do want to thank Mrs. Gogan and Mrs. Perangeli and Mr. Shennevet, from our perspective, for the amount of time that you did put into this contract negotiation. So again, if there is no other further discussion, Mrs. Perangeli, would you poll the committee, please?
Mr. Shennevet?
Yes.
Ms. Naparado?
Yes.
Ms. Siddiqui?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes. Next item on the agenda is review transfer signing of bills, payroll, and vouchers. We do have a transfer request from Bartlett High School. And actually, Mr. Shennevet, I'm going to recuse myself from this because there's some student counsel. So if you could just take over that transfer request, please.
Sure. All right, we have a transfer request from the Bartlett High School student activity account to the Bartlett High School, from the Bartlett High School student activity account at the Webster 5-cent credit, 5-cent bank to Bartlett High School student activity account at the Webster First Credit Union. You'd think they'd make different names to make it a little easier for us.
Try saying it almost every meeting.
Yeah, in the amount of $13,897.31.
So moved.
Second?
Ms. Perangeli, poll the committee, please.
Ms. Naparado?
Yes.
Ms. Siddiqui?
Yes.
Chairman?
Abstain.
Mr. Shennevet?
Yes.
And we will continue with the review, transfer, signing of bills, payroll, and vouchers.
It's 12 minutes here close.
Me and Kathy on this one?
Yeah.
Me? Nope, I didn't get these. Oh, in here? Yeah,
Yep.
thanks. Very well. Okay.
Yeah.
A lot of shuffling going on. Kathy needs that one in your right hand. These are both all set. Payroll's all set.
We're all
Kathy and I.
confused. Done that before, by the way.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Shanavert,
I would like to make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
there's a motion and a second. Hearing no further discussion, Mrs. Perangeli, would you poll the committee, please?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, meeting adjourned. Thank you very much, everybody.